You are now entering the MxU podcast. No credentials required.
Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 160 of the MxU podcast. I'm Jeff Sandstrom, and I'm here with my good buddy, co-host, Dadu Worldwide himself, Jay Desai. Jay, how are you?
Everett? Man, I'm doing great, man. It's February. It's a good time to be alive.
Amen, brother. It's like, we had a cold snap a few weeks ago, and everybody was kind of running for their lives, especially our team in Knoxville. We got 9 inches of snow in Knoxville, like mid-January, and some of those kids did not know which end is up. Couldn't get out of their driveways, couldn't get down the road. It was bananas. So, my growing up in Buffalo, went to school in Michigan, my northern snow-ridden past just was kind of chuckling on the inside.
Your snow-ridden past. That's great.
Yes.
Luckily, Spencer got a pickup truck.
No, he got a Bronco.
Oh, he got a Bronco. Well, that's basically a toy. That's not even a real car.
It has four-wheel drive, though.
Yeah, I'm surprised the Jeep didn't have to pull him out of his own driveway. I literally watched Jeeps pulling Broncos out of the mud for fun.
That's funny. Well, being a Jeep owner, you can just, wave at everybody and give them a rubber duck.
Honestly, the duck thing's weird. I get annoyed.
Where did that come from? Do you know?
I don't know, but it's like it's like kitschy now because like you get these decorated ducks. Like someone put a Batman duck on my car recently, and then someone put a Santa duck on my car. I literally just throw them in the cup holder, and then if I see a Jeep, I put them there, or I give them to my friends' kids when I see them.
Yeah, people are weird, man.
Don't touch my Jeep.
Yeah. Well, we've got a great interview coming today. I'm excited to hear from our friend Tony Staires from Lawo, and he's going to fill us all in.
How do you spell that?
Lawo, Lawo.
Sounded like Lavo to me, but that's fun.
Well, that's what you've always said, but I'm telling you, the Germans pronounce their W's like V's. What can I say?
You correct yourself up on that.
A little bit, yeah. But before we get to the interview, we need to bring back a much-loved, not often heard from segment, Turn Down for MxU. We have gotten quite a few turn downs lately, and especially as they tie into this thing that we found as we were looking for the end of the internet, I think it's appropriate that we kind of go there. So let's just preface this. This is from our friend Brian. This was from back in December, and they got it always comes on a prayer request card, right? It's always
right.
It's not how can we help? It's how can we pray for you? And so everybody wants you to pray about the sound. So this is a good one. I'm going to read it verbatim.
Do it.
The volume of the praise and worship music and vocals is all too often physically uncomfortable. I've been in the aviation industry for almost 42 years, and I know that I have experienced some degree of hearing loss. My wife, however, can still hear a fly flatulate.
Wow.
The volume of the physical assault was almost unbearable. My wife stopped worshiping to hold her fingers in her ears. Mine hurt. It was also not comfortable as the deep thumping bass was felt deep within our innards.
That's probably what got the fly to flatulate.
Its innards? Yeah. Rumbling in your innards will make you flatulate. My wife and I both enjoy our music on the loud side, but this is physically uncomfortable. The volume on Pastor's preaching this morning was also on the uncomfortable side. Is there anything that can be done to tone this down a bit? It's almost to the point that it is a hostile environment, something that I think we can all agree should not be in a church. Okay, so when we get these, first of all, the fly flatulating is pretty awesome. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
When we get these, though, the person who sends us these always gives context. So they're measuring LEQ, they're measuring real-time SPL, they're measuring all these things. The sermon is averaging at 73 dB for the sermon. Music is averaging 94 over the 3-song set. So it is pretty loud, but it's not like, arena rock loud. It's just, it's a full, big modern worship mix. So I don't know. I mean, anytime we get these, I feel like there's a reason this person complained. So it's either tonality or coverage. It's rarely SPL. I think when most people complain, it's more about the tone than it is about the volume. But anyway, what do you think about making flies flatulate? Or sorry,
Yes.
being able to hear flies flatulate?
I mean, Brian, I would take that guy to lunch, just build a bridge, and then ask him how much he gave on Sunday.
Oh, well, here's another one.
Oh, yeah, you got another one?
Yeah, so this is from another prayer request card. Please reduce the volume of the music. It is too loud and reduces ability to participate in worship. You should not be damaging hearing. 90 dB max. Thank you.
Where did all these people get their...
I don't know. It's if they're looking at their watch and it's telling them that it's too loud or what it is. But the fact that the average parishioner would even know what 90 dB is interesting to me.
I don't know if the average person knows what a parishioner is.
Well, that's true. But if their watch is reading C weighted, then their watch might be telling them it's 115. I mean, it's 90 dB max. It's like, okay, OSHA. Maybe they work for OSHA. Maybe they. But if they did, they would understand that OSHA's standards are based on long-term exposure. So you can withstand over 90 dB for quite a while, especially because worship music, being as dynamic as it is not going to do damage at that volume for 2-3 minutes at a time.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm with you. Apple, let's recalibrate that thing,
yeah,
Also,
I
stop
just think
wearing
it's
Apple Watches,
interesting.
people.
Yeah, that's right.
We got one more. I got one more here.
Yeah,
A quick
one
one.
more. Yeah,
It said,
you want to read this one?
our friend Travis said, we had a guest from
Yeah.
out of town visit our church the morning before our big Christmas production. We decided to do an acoustic set to give the orchestra the morning off. So it was pretty much keys and 3 acoustics. The guest, named Billy, walked out and handed our deacons a Connect card and said, no guitars or no Billy, which I appreciate the gangster threat. But they just had keys and 3 acoustics. Oh, one looks like
Yep.
one electric. But Billy, I'm sorry, man. Don't know what to tell you. Might be time to find a church
Well, I think
or double
hopefully
down
they
and
brought the
serve on
orchestra
the audio
back.
team.
Yeah, hopefully they brought the orchestra back the very next week so we could get Billy's input back into our service programming because apparently he's got some opinions.
Yeah, which I appreciate,
Well,
Billy. Say what you need to.
yeah, say what you need. But I think the whole point is obviously if there's a complaint, there's something behind it, whether it's actually too loud or actually, you know, offensive or whatever the adjective is. Something led these people to get out a prayer request card and pray for your ability to mix. So, you know, to some degree, I think obviously vision of leadership is important here. You guys need to define for your experiences what your sound for your church is, and then provide some guardrails. And if you go beyond those guardrails, then don't be surprised if you get feedback. But if you're within the guardrails, then either have a conversation, direct them to the right person to have a conversation. Like Jay said, take them to lunch and figure out what's behind their complaint. But again, these are funny here, but sometimes it's not funny if it's actually impacting people's experience in a negative way. Which leads me to a website that, as we have gotten into these comments over and over and over again, our good friend Nick in the MxU Slack posted a link to a book. And this is amazing. There is a book called The Decibel Doctrine. This book reveals the hidden agenda of rock loud music in the sanctuary. And it looks awesome. Here's the short summation. Here's why the music is getting so loud in my church. There's a new age belief that intense volumes of music facilitated by electronic technology entertains the presence of God. This false doctrine is a belief that loud music attracts and pleases God. The decibel doctrine is also a belief that loud music is biblical worship. The Decibel Doctrine is a book that reveals the hidden agenda of rock and roll volume music in the sanctuary. So I want to read the book because I'm not sure how the author reconciles this belief with verses that say, sing a new song and shout for joy. Praise him in the sanctuary with loud cymbals.
I'm pretty sure clanging cymbals is, at
Yes.
least 95 dB. Man, if it's some of our drummers, holy cow. Some of these bam bams out there need a chill on the crashes.
That's right. So anyway, it's a 20-year collection of articles by this guy, and it reveals basically why church music has become so loud in the sanctuary.
Also, the image on the front of the book is like a chapel with a guy in front of it holding his ears, which is pretty good. You don't have to buy the $23 paperback online.
No.
You can go to the website and buy a $6.99 ebook version.
That's right. Maybe it's I wonder if it's an ebook. It's not an audiobook. I was going to say it'd be great if it was an audiobook. We could.
It's just whispers.
They
whisper the whole
could probably
book.
give good examples. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for letting us turn down for MxU. But at the end of the day, there's probably a grain of truth in some of these complaints. Maybe we should all, as an assignment, read the Decibel Doctrine and then come back and discuss. MxU
or
Book
we
Club.
could maybe see if David's still with us here on Earth and he would come on the podcast.
That would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. That's probably not advisable. I can't be trusted in those kind of environments. I just need to be you and him.
Oh, that's funny. Well, anyway, let's get to our interview today. We're, like I said, talking with Tony Staires from Lawo, and he's going to fill us all in, actually, on some of the behind the scenes and inner workings of the Sphere in Las Vegas. So I cannot wait to hear from Tony. I know a lot of people have questions. A lot of people have seen stuff on social media, and a lot of you have maybe been there for YouTube or some of the other experiences they have. So I know you and the boys.
I was going to say, right after the interview, stay tuned because I am going to tell you my experience at U2.
Excellent. Well, can't wait to hear that. And we'll get to that right after this. Well, we're thrilled today to be joined by our good friend Tony Staires from Lawo. And Jay, that's Lawo, even though it's Lawo.
Yeah, one of these on phonics.
One of these days you'll get it right.
Right.
But just wanted to welcome Tony and just catch up. So how have you been doing, man?
Doing good, man. Busy year, a lot going on, but can't really complain. So yeah, I just things keep growing, especially on the audio side, which is kind of the big portion I manage, and definitely no complaints. It's other than we need more people to come work for us for keep up with all the projects we're doing. So
well, that's great. Well, 2023 was definitely a big year for a lot of people, but you, unbeknownst to many people, I guess, were a big part of a little project going on in Las Vegas, which by now people have seen and are kind of flabbergasted by. So we want to spend a good chunk of our time today talking about the Sphere and just to get kind of an insider's look into some of that technology and some of the just all of what it took to pull that off and some of the initial response to kind of now that it's been in front of an audience for a while, just to get some of the just honest feedback about how it is and what it's like and all that. So, because I know a lot of people are going to want to see it, especially with trade shows coming up. There's going to be a lot of people clamoring to get inside that thing. So we're excited that you're here today to help talk about it.
Yeah. Glad to be here. I love you guys. Always happy to be in the same room virtually or in person. So yeah, and I really appreciate all you guys do and have always,
Yeah. Sorry that we missed you at our live event back in the fall. I know you had
Yeah. Where were you?
I was in Amsterdam at a little trade show there called IBC.
Man.
Just struggling there in Amsterdam in the fall. Just suffering for the Lord.
Yeah, somebody's got to do the Lord's work. I mean, Jay, you just got back from a little vacation that you had to
I
Prague
did.
and other parts of Europe. So I mean, you guys.
Berlin and have you been to Copenhagen?
I have
No,
not.
I have
That's
not.
on my list.
It was it was freezing, but it was amazing.
I'm
That's so
actually
cool.
leaving for Germany on Friday this week, and I'm not looking forward to the weather. I wasn't looking forward
it's
to the
cold.
weather that is upon us here in Austin, Texas. Definitely not looking forward to the weather in Germany. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
Sphere,
European
man, it was
cold
crazy.
is a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm actually going to fly into Amsterdam because normally we fly into Frankfurt, spend a couple days just kind of getting through the jet lag before literally it's like 8 hours of meetings for a full week. So it's like, let's go to a fun city. I kind of get tired of Frankfurt, so I'll get cold in Amsterdam again. So
I think
it's all good.
there's nothing that paints a picture of sort of German mentality and German engineering more than the Frankfurt airport. It is like the most
Yeah.
linear, like button down experience you'd ever want from an international
Yes.
airport.
Yeah,
Amsterdam, not so much.
No,
Amsterdam, not so much.
Yeah, you're trying to get out of Schiphol. You might want to get there a day ahead of time. But yeah, in Frankfurt, man, you get in the right line, you're going to wind up where you need to be. If you get in the wrong
Yeah.
line, that's your fault. You should have gotten the right line.
It's your fault.
So-
Yeah, you should have known better. That's funny. That's cool. Well, I hope that goes well. So,
Yeah.
obviously, Lawo is a German company. That's why your meetings and stuff are there. A lot of people don't know a lot about Lawo's consoles, but we featured the Lawo desk at our 2022 MxU tour,
Yeah.
and I was able to mix on it, which was an awesome experience. Let's
Thank
take
you.
a few minutes before we get into the Sphere. Let's take a few minutes and talk about maybe what's new in the product line or what you guys are working on lately that people might not know about. Is there anything to
Yeah,
report?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a few things for sure. Let's see. In AB New York, we launched this little controller called the Crystal. Previous models of the Crystal were mainly just in our radio line, but this is the first one that crosses over in what we would call audio production, where it can be used as a console controller. So a couple different things. It can be like an extra fader tile for a console or remote fader tile for a console. It can even be switched into OSC mode to where then you can use it as a DAW controller.
Oh, cool.
And so what this means, like, because we have a core that's external, and what's even unique about our console core can be subdivided into multiple independent consoles. So, which is even new for us as far as the number of consoles. We've been doing this for a while with 4. We've now released where you can do 32 independent small consoles off one RU core. So
One RU.
One RU. So 1024 channels, one RU. And so like if you want just like 14 faders and broadcast, you can just hook that up to the core with this little crystal controller, maybe a little touchscreen, and basically have kind of an independent little console without buying one of our big, large kind of production consoles. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so it's a way to kind of expand your facility, take the same hardware that we've had for quite a while, and do more with it. We have some more things coming down the pipe. We actually introduced a new, which is not new for a lot of people, but new for Lawo. We introduced a iPad aux mixer, so you can do aux mixes from an iPad. It's all HTML based, so it actually doesn't have to be an iPad. Anything with a browser, you can log in, find your aux, do pans and levels and all that kind of good stuff. So it's one of those things like people have been asking for a long time. Not to put our product team down, but for a long time, the Germans were like,
We lost them.
why would you buy a console and not have somebody behind it? And, I think through just a progression in the company and getting into new markets, they kind of saw the need for remote, kind of mix applications and things like that. So
What is that product called?
So the aux mixer the Crystal, you have the Crystal console, which is the little small like surface, and then the aux mixer really is just a first step in some things that are coming for us, but it comes free. You buy a console,
Cool.
It's really just a web service that runs on the console that you remote into. That's it. So there's no app to download. There's nothing to keep updated because it's an HTML based application. Anything with a browser, a phone, tablet, whatever can log in, get your mix, and dial it up.
So
right.
speaking of that, I don't want to make any assumptions about what you guys are developing, but I've heard from more and more users and console manufacturers. I think people are trying to chase some way to basically be completely remote in
Absolutely.
mixing. In other words, to have a broadcast mix that can originate from somebody sitting in their living room, or get the right control platform, and then from my place at home I could help a church with their broadcast mix or their monitor mix or whatever. I mean, it seems like that HTML based, iPad based kind of thing is opening the door to some of that kind of stuff. Would you say that's true? I mean, don't reveal anything about Lawo if you can't, but
No,
I feel like
no.
that's something that a lot of people are really trying to go after.
I mean, the cool thing about us is we've been doing that remote control thing for a long time, like quite a while, to where like our surface has been removed from the core, and that connection between the surfaces and the core is all IP based and can be connected over a long, wide area backhaul. What we've realized, of course, is like most people don't want a massive console sitting in their office at home. So
Right.
what do we do to kind of allow that remote interface? Well, one thing we started during COVID was called Mix Kitchen, which is our console GUI that you can load on any computer, and then you were able to connect any Huey Mackie Huey interface, which is an open protocol. So you could remotely control a console core from that interface, and all you needed was return audio. So things like Lucy Live, Unity Connect, or if you had some other way of getting return monitor audio, then you could do that remotely. So we have kind of quite a few ways, to remote in and do it. You can have a remote surface. I was actually just at a television station last week. I probably could say it. I was at TBN Studios in Nashville installing a console last week. They're building a facility in Dallas, and they have some stuff all over. So they're like, how can we just remote mix? And it's like, if you can get remote control over usually just a dedicated little VPN, which is very low bandwidth, and then return audio, you can connect your surface to any core remotely. So yeah, it's kind of what we do. We're just trying to find simpler and more compact ways of doing it. So things like the Crystal coming out, doing more of the HTML thing, just makes it easier. And where you may be able to do it over the wide area internet, versus having some sort of dedicated circuit, or at least guaranteed VPN kind of thing.
That's very cool. So for the
Yeah.
Crystal, what's the form factor of that? Like, how many faders? What does the control surface look like?
Yeah, it can be ordered as small as like a little 4 fader, and then you can go up to like 14 faders on the thing and do a couple multiple layers on it. And like I said, it can be used in kind of couple different applications. So like a small like radio we sell this thing called a power core, which is like a small version, or a UHD core, which is our big one. And that can be like used for like a small setup. I say small, that can go up to like 96 inputs as it's licensed. And that's another thing we do quite well, is we license products to expand them. So like if you buy a UHD core at like 128 channels, again, you can license that in chunks up to 1024. So the hardware you buy today can last you so much longer, because just because you outgrow channels don't mean you throw it away and start over with a new desk.
That's very cool.
So same thing with the Crystal. You could start, we're talking to, some big companies right now of like, well, maybe you start on the edge with these little power cores and crystals, but if you grow, put some centrally located UHD cores, and then you can actually still use your power cores as stage boxes, and not engine. So there's just so much flexibility in what we do. I think it makes it difficult for people at times, because they're like, what product were we talking about? And we're like, it's the
Right.
same product. It's just licensed differently on how you want to use it. So, yeah,
I'm looking at the Crystal right now. It's pretty awesome looking.
yeah. So it's just, and it can be ordered in white or black. Like we've done white for so long in the radio line, but realized, audio production guys like black. So we got two different colors as well. So no difference, just different colors based on kind of what you wanted to order. Actually, we just sold one to a customer in a radio application that wanted black. So I was like, yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome. So for people who don't know, like when you say your maxed out core is 1024 channels, that's inputs, outputs, buses, everything. Like a channel for you guys is just a path, right? So
Right. Yeah.
1024 is any configuration of that number, whether it's inputs,
Right.
outputs, buses, whatever.
Yeah, so 8-channel blocks, you can move inputs to outputs, outputs to inputs, and pretty much on the fly for the most part. So the console, you choose outputs, inputs, hit apply, no reboot, off you go. So yeah, it's just a path. We do that because we handle so many different formats. We go anywhere from mono all the way up to 914 Atmos. So, to try to give somebody numbers based on their application, we'd be doing, math that I'm not great at. So
That's very cool.
we just count monopaths and, however you need to use it, anywhere from, like I said, we have customers doing anything from, small mono stereo applications all the way up to full Atmos applications,
That's pretty cool.
which every church
But-
should be doing Atmos, right?
Probably not. But
No.
What I love about you guys is the flexibility, right? Some people
Yeah.
might think of Lawo as only a large format broadcast, highest level kind of solution. But being as modular as you are, and now with the Crystal, it's like you can really kind of scale down the form factor, still have the sound quality, still have the user interface and the flexibility, and have an ecosystem that can grow as your needs grow, which I think is really impressive.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at our video products right now, we're moving from like purpose-built hardware. So where in the past our processing was built on a blade, that blade had an FPGA, and we could reprogram it for multiple different purposes, but could never scale beyond that blade and capacity. We're taking that processing. We've introduced a thing called Home Apps. Home is kind of the central orchestration platform, but the applications are now processes that you can build on that platform. So now it's multi-viewer, up-down cross, and that is all built on Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA platforms, so CPU and servers, right? So if you read the writing on the wall, if we've taken our video and gone there, like where the rest of our products could be going as far as scalability and where you could take our other technologies, take it off purpose-built hardware into, kind of an off-the-shelf platform and scale it, start a small companies that are spending millions upon millions of dollars in R&D. You see processors and video cards, the capacity is growing infinitely and very quickly. And so, yeah, I say stay really close to what we're doing, and we have some really cool stuff coming in the audio space, kind of based on a lot of what I'm talking about here.
That's cool. Well, that's exciting. And, I just know from a user standpoint, I was unfamiliar with the workflow and the console really at all until I was using it for MxU. And, in terms of getting up and running and, familiarity with it and being able to kind of customize the workflow, it really worked well for me, made a lot of sense. Obviously, sounds great. And, I think you guys are just doing more and more that's continuing to impress, which is great.
I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
We're trying to learn from we've not been known for a touring company. I'm not sure if we want to be known as a production touring audio company. We might be. I don't know. But the band Fish picked us up this past year. We've been on tour with Fish for literally the last year and a half, and we're sitting in all audio positions at the moment. So front of house, monitors, and broadcast. So we're learning a lot from that and getting a lot of feedback from those guys. But it's been real successful. They love the sound of the product, which is really kind of our first and foremost thing. You got to love the way it sounds. But again, it's a new thing, and we try to learn and adapt as quickly as possible. So
Cool. Well, let's in that's probably a good transition. Let's shift gears a little bit and start our conversation about the Sphere, because you guys had basically a firsthand inside look into the planning and the prep and then the execution of that project. So, a lot of people were curious about a lot of things for a long time that were definitely under pretty strict NDA. So now
absolutely.
now that it's open to the public and people have seen it, let's kind of unpack just some of the nuts and bolts of what's in this infrastructure to begin with, and then we'll talk about application in a bit. But what was your role? Like, what did Lawo have to do with the project, and how did you get introduced to it in the first place?
Yeah, so a guy that's kind of become a good friend of mine in this world, a guy named Chris Lapp, who works for Cisco, called me late one night and just said, I got a call for you to get on Monday. Can't tell you about the project, but you're going to be asked a lot of questions about audio transport and video transport across the network. And ultimately, your company needs to explain why Ravenna, which is kind of our audio transport protocol, and explain why Ravenna is better than Dante. Because there's this large scale project. Dante is struggling to meet this scale, and they explain what you can do to overcome these problems. And so Monday morning comes, I was able to get the head of our Ravenna side of the company on the call with me, and basically answered all the questions, just kind of wiped the floor with everything they were asking. And quickly thereafter, there was emails with NDAs and things like that to talk about what is, we now know as the Sphere. And it just kind of landed needing to provide an audio transport solution for tens of thousands of audio streams throughout this facility. And then after that, it was like, well, what is Ravenna? Where did it come from? And then that just kind of snowballed into us controlling all the routing within the facility, us doing a lot of video gatewaying and multi-viewing. So gatewaying being taking a typical SDI source and getting it into an IP fabric. So we handle that. Even though most of the facility is all 2110 native, so meaning that a piece of hardware just goes right into the fabric versus having to be gatewayed in. And then multi-viewing, monitoring, and then we have some consoles in there as well. So we have 5 consoles at the facility that can do just about anything. You can either bring your own console in, and then we take your audio, bring it into us, and we can then make that immersive. There's just kind of a lot of things flexibly we can do once in the fabric, but we basically control and orchestrate every route within the facility as well. So a source doesn't meet a destination without our control system, VSM, telling it where to go.
That's very interesting. So I caught most of what you said, but when you said that they needed a way to basically transport tens of thousands of audio paths, I need to know more about what that means, because that to me is like, what, tens of thousands? What do you mean? Jay, you're muted.
Jay's muted.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just saying that it blew my mind when he said that. I was still like reeling.
Yeah.
I can
I was like, where are you getting all this
channels
from?
right.
Yeah, they sent me a chart, of all of the audio, and I was like, there's no way, so it's, like I said, our cores are 1024. They are fully maxed out. So it's like they're taking, hundreds of audio channels coming in, and that's getting bussed out to 256 buses coming out of what they're calling, kind of a central processing core. And so that happens, we've got to get it down in some way to get it then out to all the speakers. So it's everything from video playback sources coming from front of house, you just name it. There's ports all over the facility that you can pick off from, so you've got to account for making that route no matter where it is in the facility. So it may not always be used. You're probably not using 20,000 audio streams at one time, but there's a capacity to do so if you needed to. So like, you needed to route 2,000 channels of audio to a holoplot array. That's easily done, because you may need to take this one channel in and move it around, and that's all you do with it for the show. But you still have to have a path for it. So the audio stream chart is just bonkers when you look at it.
How many guys
the
are
sheer
mixing
scale
this?
of it is just bananas.
Right. What do you say, Jay?
Is it one guy mixing all this? I guess a lot of it's preset.
It can be anything. That's the thing. It's so they're right now they're running 2 shows. There's U2. So you have Joe Hurley who's mixing that show. And then which is, pretty, pretty, I don't want to say basic because there's nothing basic about this facility, but it's, you're
Right.
taking that and then moving things around. It's, it's a rock and roll show. So much of the audio is just kind of left, center, right in front of you. And then there's some immersive stuff that goes along with it. But then they have a show called Postcards from Earth that is fully immersive, much more immersive than the U2 show because it's all playback. So you have to think about like timing and delay and all that kind of stuff as you do with the live show. So you've got immersive elements that are coming every which way at every moment. And so, as well as haptics, that's the thing. You've got haptic feedback in a certain number of the seats within the facility. And so you've got to get audio there. And there's ways you can do beam forming to where, certain number of seats can have a completely different listening experience than, another, let's say 8 or 16 seats in the venue. So again, you have to account for all this overhead depending on how you're going to use the facility. There was a lot of things built in the facility based on, where they wanted to go. And you didn't want to put limits on day one, when like later on and the facility may be used for all these other things. UFC's talking about doing a fight there. And so what can you do immersive, and so there had to be enough free form to like do an immersive, mixed martial arts show, an immersive concert, to an award show, all the way up to pre-made content. So,
Are the speakers custom in there?
they're actually not custom. They are made by a company called Holoplot. It's their X1 array. It was initially, actually the Beacon Theater was the first place to have a Holoplot array. That was MSG's kind of
In New York?
test. Yeah, in New York. So kind of a test venue. And then it's a speaker box. It's got 96 drivers in it. That's individually amplified. I believe the one with the sub is one or two less drivers, or a few less drivers. I think it's like 90 plus the 18-inch sub that's in it. And those are just matrix. They're just squared like 1 meter by 1 meter boxes. And they're just, if I can show you guys a picture, there's just a large proscenium array of hundreds of these boxes. There's 1,600 in the actual, what they call the dome and or the bowl. And so there's 1,600 of these speakers that have roughly 100 drivers in them. And you do that for all the beam steering. You can't get the granularity of beam steering without that number of drivers, right? And so the more drivers you have, the more closely related they are, the better beam steering you can get.
So
for all
each
these
driver
immersive
is
points.
only what, 3 inches? I mean, it's got to be tiny.
Yeah, it's a small driver. Yep. And you just have a bunch of them. If you just pull up HOLOPLOT, you can see that driver, and they have the cover off the box, but you can see, yeah, they got them packed in there for sure.
And so,
But
for all intents and purposes, you've got basically about 180,000 speakers in this building.
Yeah. It's about 160,000 in one room. That's not including what's in the hallways and the suites and, it's concourse. It's insane. And
That's amazing.
each driver is individually amplified and can, take a discrete channel of audio.
That's crazy.
So I've heard, so one I forget who told me, but there was some statistic that I heard that, let's say you were doing like a TED Talk type thing or some sort of presentation event in this building, and it needed multilingual. Sorry, like if you were doing a presentation like a TED Talk in this building, and you needed multi-language support, that you could be sitting in your chair and hearing the presentation in English, and the person next to you could be hearing a presentation in a different language, and you couldn't hear each other's broadcast
Absolutely.
transmission.
Yeah, we actually.
How does that work?
Right. What kind of voodoo? Who'd you make a deal with?
It's definitely some voodoo. It's the granularity, the beam steering, and how they can do what they call focused beams, and so they can. It's a little less granular in that size of facility. I think it's about every 4 or 8 seats. They
Okay.
can do a beam. They could do one as small, like as a basketball if they needed to, but then you would run out of processing at some point. But you can do about every 4 to 8 seats and do language support. So probably what they would do is just take a group of seats and ticket those off for a specific language and then steer a mix toward that one area. And basically, it's pretty dead on when you step outside of that pattern. You might hear some reflections coming from elsewhere, but you don't hear any direct audio. So it's almost more like somebody's having a conversation next to you a little bit versus like you directly hearing that other language. So they've shown that at several of their demos too. You can stand at an X on the floor and get English. You go 2 meters to the right, you get Mandarin, then go a little further out, you get Portuguese or whatever. It's pretty crazy.
That's unbelievable.
And it sounds good.
Insane.
That's the thing.
Okay,
It's
so
like,
that's another question. Like how does the audio experience compare to just like a left-right line array at a rock show? In other words, the U2 experience with this PA is very different than what most of us have come to expect. So how does it compare? What do you like about it? What do you think are its limitations? Like, is it really best for purpose-built content, or is anybody going to be able to walk in there and have a successful experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I've heard it in a few different applications, inside and outside of the Sphere at this point. And, I think as with any speaker system, it's all in what you put through it, right? And how well
Yep.
you mix. But they're not going to have any problem and have not had any problem, getting a high quality show out of those boxes. There's a lot of R&D that went into it. So there's a lot of things they even continually tweak. I mean, I know one of the first demos I was a part of, the low end was it's a bandpass box. So it sounded like a bandpass box. And so anybody listening, like a bandpass can sometimes sound not punchy and a little flubby based on the design. And between hearing it at the first demo and later demos, they even tightened up the low end somewhere in their processing, and are just continually improving. On the immersive side, you have to be very careful because of processing and latency. You start getting really focused beams; they start to get a little more latent, and so you got to be very careful because then they could become well out of line of a live source. You can do what are called diffused beams, where it's just kind of spray of audio kind of everywhere, giving you this, more of a kind of an immersive, not kind of, again, focused channels of audio.
Mhm.
And that's a lot less latent, so it's easier to use in a live format. But all that to say, I mean, they're pushing into other live markets and live venues with this product. So I don't see it having a problem keeping up with anybody else, other than, it's can be used in some very cool applications. That's for sure. I saw recently they were doing some outdoor testing at a festival, and I don't think they're gonna have a problem with it. And they have some new products coming out much smaller that aren't quite as large, quite as heavy, quite as expensive. So, but they're going to be able to do shows there. That's for sure.
Man, very interesting. Well, I can't
I mean,
wait
that's
to I can't
gonna
wait
be
to hear it.
wild.
Yeah.
I'll say for me, the amount of audio and like energy you have coming at you and the experience you can get is awesome at a much lower volume. You go to some concerts well over 100 dB. It feels great, but it's real fatiguing after a 2-hour concert.
Yeah.
Here you can sit here and listen to U2 for 3 hours at a much lower decibel level, but you still get a lot of energy coming to you, and you don't feel fatigued at the end of the show.
Interesting. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the video experience, because I know a lot of people have seen the sort of visuals from U2 especially, and even the Postcards project, where it's just this completely immersive video thing where you're surrounded literally by images because of the shape of the room. Obviously, they're building content that is designed to envelop you. So talk for a minute about that.
Yeah, I will say the first time I walked into their testing facility out in Burbank, which is like a 1/10 size of Sphere, I was completely disoriented by the video content. Your brain is not used to this video screen that it's going around you, and so
Yeah.
to get that in even a much larger scale like Sphere with 18,000 seats, and the video goes completely, over your head. It's again, it's disorienting because you just your mind is trying to put into context of everything that's going on, and sometimes just to look up and look around, you think you're in a different place.
Hmm.
So to have content that's then curated and built just for that venue and specifically for these events, it's like nothing you've ever seen before. I'll be honest with you. And then the way that I was most impressed by how they've been able to mix the iMag in with the content. And so if you go and you're part of one of the shows, um, you can see how they've taken these camera shots and they've mixed them in with this immersive video content. So like you may have a camera that appears within like this object within the wall, and it may move around with the content. Or there's a moment in the show with U2 where there's a string that drops from the ceiling, and on the wall there's a balloon, and it looks like, and then Bono's kind of flying around as the balloon is moving around, and so it's you can even interact with the content just because it feels like it's part of the environment. So it's
That's
and
crazy.
you don't see any speakers. All the speakers are behind the LED. They're all micro perforations in the LED wall, so you get all of the audio, without even seeing the speakers within the LED wall. And it's pretty insane.
That's
When it
crazy.
comes down to it.
So in terms of the actual physical structure, there's LED on the outside, obviously, that the
Yep.
public can see just from the street, and then there's the LED experience on the inside. So you've got this membrane, and then you've got the interior. So what does the space between look like? Like just from a structural standpoint, what in terms of construction, like how does that all work?
Yeah, so it's a ball inside of a ball is really what it is. You have kind of what you're seeing on the outside, the ectosphere that we've all kind of seen on social media. And they're like little LED pucks.
Yep.
And they're spaced pretty far apart in reality. And so when they don't have the wall on the outside, you can actually see through the top part of the building. And then you can kind of see the interior sphere portion. And so there's quite a bit of gap between the outside wall and the inside wall. You can literally walk in between them.
Are there
and the gap
catwalks
on
and
the-
stuff up there that you can for maintenance
Absolutely.
and
There's
things? Yeah.
There's catwalks for maintenance. Some of the things you got to get to, you got to fly to. You got to rig and then kind of rappel down into certain things. But certainly have thought about maintenance when it comes to it. There's actually a portion of the U2 show, that the balloon portion where they drop something down. They actually pull a portion of the wall out and then drop that lead down. So it's pretty interesting. There's a guy
Wow.
up there actually pulling that piece out. But they had to figure out how they're going to service this thing over the years. They can't just bring in a crane every time they want to work on it. But yeah, then you have the interior LED. They're made up of all these different types of panels. It has to meet the curve of the building. So there's specific ones for specific areas depending on where it's going to go in. And I found it interesting. One of the times I went there during construction, there was a guy in what's now the front of house area, and he was laying down. And I thought he was sleeping on the job. I was like, "Look, he's taking a nap." And then
Is that Jay?
on closer observation, I walk up. He's actually laid back on one of these like camping chairs, and he's got binoculars, and he's calling out like pixels in the LED wall that either need to be calibrated or need to be replaced. And so they were going quadrant by quadrant, going through all the pixels in this thing to make sure it was 100% from day one.
That's crazy.
And, I can't imagine that job, But yeah, it's again, it's kind of made to be modular. If you need to load in, load out, you got portions of the wall that comes out to be able to load in, underneath the proscenium there. There's no permanent stage in the facility, so if you go in and see a stage, it was brought in for that show. So the whole U2 stage is, stage for that show. So everything's really kind
So
of
that
customized.
gives them so many options, right? Because of the nature of the 360 immersive type thing. They could do it something in the round. They could
Yeah.
do all kinds of business.
Oh yeah, you can, do custom content, man. It's all about like what you can do to draw people in, to what's happening, because in the top seats, you're pretty far away, but you have this big screen that we all know if you go to big enough concerts, you want to watch the screen anyway. So what can
Right.
you do to
Right.
draw people in where you forget that the stage is, several hundred feet below you?
That's amazing. Well, I wonder like how, and this isn't a question for you to answer, this is just me musing, like how practical is it going to be for other tours to have a residency there? Because the content requirement is so different. We're not just talking about a bunch of 16:9 or video server stuff. It's like you've got to build pretty purpose built content to be able to have the experience that you'd want to have in this place. So, we're talking about massive acts who are going to invest a ton of money, even MSG having to invest, a ton of money in figuring out how to support these things well. So, what do you think is going to like is there a calendar for what's next? Like who's coming in, who's working on building stuff for this?
Yeah, so Fish is in April. That's been announced. So which is really interesting. I'm been obviously us being out on tour with them, having a lot of conversations of what that looks like once they go into Sphere. And what's interesting about Fish is there's nothing about a Fish show that's programmed, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
they
Nature
just
of
did a
the
run
show.
at they just did a run at MSG, which is their big New Year's. I mean, they'll do 4 nights back to back with 4-hour shows, not play a single song twice, right?
Yeah.
They may have a thought of a set list, but most of the time that goes off script. So how do you do that in
And it's
kind of
certainly not time coded because they've got, you could have a song that just goes into a 20-minute extended jam that isn't planned or predicted. And you just got to kind of punt in terms of lighting and video, I'm sure. So
right,
it's,
and
it's
even
a,
to the point of like live instruments in that room is a difficult thing. A round room is the worst room for acoustics,
yeah,
and
anybody who's
so
done a
you got
show in
to.
a dome before knows that parabolic reflection is not exciting as a front of house engineer or
Right,
monitor
it looks
engineer.
pretty, but physics
Yeah.
are so even thinking about like live amps in the room, having a live drum kit. There's you see with U2, there's a plexiglass shield that was not there in the initial plan, but you kind of had to do that based on the room. So I know there's some big acts they're talking to. You name it, they've
So
all been
churches
through
out
the
there,
facility.
just know even U2 is using a drum shield. So
Even U2's using a drum shield. So I mean, like Fish, there's going to need to be some planning that's involved. I think Kuroda, who's the lighting engineer for Fish, man, that guy probably doesn't get paid enough because he's with that big of a lighting package. He is busking the entire show, and so like try to figure that out with Sphere is going to be interesting. I don't know if it's all planned yet, but it's definitely being talked about and thought about. Like, how do you do this in a live, non-linear, not non-produced type of way? You have somebody that uses a lot of tracks. The songs go the same way every night. That's one story, but versus like a band
Right.
that just does not have a script,
Yeah.
how's it going to work? And so, I mean, I think of all people that can be immersive and be cool, as much as probably like a lot of the generation that listens to this podcast just doesn't listen to Fish. If you kind of give them a chance and listen to it, there's a lot of cool things that like I think you can really do with their music.
Yeah,
So
that would be very cool. Well, maybe we can get out there and experience it in person. I would love to see and hear it. I've read about it and I've seen so much on social media about it. I'm fascinated.
I'm going in a few weeks
Nice.
with Ryan and Ryan, Sweeney and McCormick.
Very cool.
Yeah, should be good.
So what about the video side? Like obviously it's not standard resolution. So for people who are creating content, like what is the raster? What is the like how does it do its processing to make it so big and wide and round and all that?
yeah, it's 16K resolution. The LED wall's 4 acres large. And there are hundreds of these rasterizers or servers made by a company called Seventh Sense, and they're handling all of kind of the image creation. If you see how all these pixels get put together in in a round format, like if you were to try to put that on a flat screen, it actually doesn't translate.
Yeah.
And the monitoring side of it's very difficult because you don't have another sphere you can sit in and monitor all these things. So there's a lot of monitoring on the back end that goes from like the health of the video streams to the health of the LED wall and the processors, just so you can kind of know if there's a problem. Because getting an image on a flat surface that's meant for a round surface, it's really not even viewable. But yeah, getting the 60K image together is not easy. And so I have to go through these hundreds of video processors that really put all that together. And they have some other ways in their studios and stuff like that to kind of rasterize it and kind of get a general idea. But there's some things, you just don't really know and understand until you get into the room, both on the audio and video side. So it's a huge lift on the processing side to try to make an image. And on top of that, the cameras, right? So there's no camera that's made to shoot this type of video. So they've had to invest in technologies and camera sensors and things like that in order to create images for this. My understanding is they actually put some cameras on a rocket, sent it in outer space to get some of the footage for postcards. So
Wow.
I was actually told early on by one of the consultants in the project was like, hey man, the best thing for you to do is not get on a call and tell them they can't do something, because then they'll want to do it. So,
Right.
Oh yeah, I'll show you. Right.
Yeah, there's like, hey, we want to do this. No, you can't do that. And then it's like, all right, there's the nail. It's happening. You got to
Yeah.
make
What's
this
it going to
work.
take to make this happen? That's amazing, man. I don't even know what else to ask. Jay, what else you got?
I mean, like I want to talk to Tony when we get back after I go see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually what's happened from the artists that I've talked to or their teams is like they talk a little bit about before they go, and then they come back and go, all right, how's this done, or how are we going to contextualize this? And so, it's one of those things like you can't really explain it. You almost have to just talk about it to somebody that's been there.
Yeah. Honest question though.
Yeah.
Is this the future?
Man, I think yes and no. I think obviously MSG thinks that it is, because there's more of these planned. I think us as individuals are looking for more immersive type experiences. You see companies like Apple and others that are really pushing us toward these types of, getting you much closer to the field of play through an immersive experience, through like maybe the goggles from Apple or other things. So I think this is just another step to concerts and shows, and so we can draw people more into what's going on. So I think so. I think there's going to be ways to bring it down. If you're the first one, that's always going to cost the most.
Yeah, the tickets right now are absurd.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those. It's hard.
It's new. It's a new thing. So
it's a new thing. I think. Are you getting actual tickets from MSG, or are they secondhand, like
from
StubHub
MSG?
type?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's trying to pay for all. There's
a lot of research, a lot
for
of
the band. Yeah, I mean, the band put a lot in. The band's getting a lot out. That's even hard to get tickets for people. The people that I know, it was hard for me to get tickets to opening night, to be honest with you, because every seat for you two gets paid for. The band gets paid for that seat. So there's really no comp tickets for the show. So if you're getting a ticket, somebody's paying for it one way or another.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, and it's just costly. Think about like Fish is only going to be there for 4 days right now. That's what they're contracted. You can see online. And
it's
to
a
try
lot
to get
for
your money
4 days.
back, 4 days, 18,000 seats. It's not like you're in a 70,000 seat arena. So what can you do to get paid back for all this content you're getting? Making that content's not free. So
I mean, I guess the plan then, especially for MSG, to have multiple of these around the world, is artists can go to multiple over time, and so the content can live on and be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can tour those venues, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that's really kind of the thought, is they would have.
And the residency thing has picked up quite a bit.
Less traveling for the artists and their teams. Right?
Since most of our listener base is within the faith community, touring or not, speculation, what CCM artist, gospel CCM, doesn't matter, what artist is cool enough Like, I'll just be honest. Matthew West can't go play at the Sphere. It's just bland, you know? So,
Right.
And Chris, too. Tomlin's not really going to thrive at the Sphere because, like, the coolest content he has is me playing trumpet with a cityscape behind him. So, who is the artist in the faith world that goes to the Sphere? Probably 15 years from now, because we're generally behind the curve. So,
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I was actually having this conversation opening night after the show. I was like, another guy that's part of the project was also kind of involved in church. We were riding down the escalator, and I asked the same questions, like, what CCM artist you think would pull this off?
who did he say?
I mean, we were both just kind of shaking our heads. It's like, well, who would do it? I mean, who's big enough to do it? Is it like Map City, or is it Elevation or somebody like that? Or is it somebody, more like King and Country, they have a pretty large following, can fill a venue like that, and has content that's would be geared to something like that, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's probably going to be, I would think, like a bigger CCM artist for sure. That's, probably we wouldn't nail it, to be honest with you. But, I could see somebody like, why wouldn't you do, I mean, who knows? Maybe Passion does something there. Yeah. Passion Las Vegas. Why wouldn't you do it?
Send me, Lord.
Just make it
yes.
happen,
Yeah.
It's wild.
Whatever happens, I'm sure it's going to be years down the road. But if the trend
maybe Central does Christmas there.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, Adam, get on it, bro.
Come on, Adam. Let's make it happen.
Well, it's probably years down the road, but if the trend continues toward more immersive experiences, I mean, that is what culture is moving toward. It's what people seem to want. So, whether it's the Sphere or other things like it, I think, that's probably the future that we're headed toward, which, obviously hyper creativity is always going to spur technology and vice versa. So it'll be exciting to see what happens. And I don't know, the future is, bunch of line array speakers in a convention center type rectangle is probably not what the future looks like. So it's going to be interesting to see how we not only adapt to those changes, but how I'm curious, like how we want to listen is going to change. You talked about SPL volume being lower, not necessarily being beat over the head by this bombardment of sound coming through a concert. It's like, so what does it look like? Is it speakers in every seat? Is it individual goggles or headphones or whatever that are more immersive and people getting a dedicated, surround mix, some kind of Atmos thing? Or is it you maybe get to control your own mix at some level where you get to hear different things the way you want to hear them? I mean, the possibilities are endless. I'm excited to see what happens in the industry, because things like the Sphere are only opening up more creativity and more kind of dreaming potential.
I think Andy Stanley said it years ago that awareness drives desire, right? And so now that we're aware of something like this, it kind of puts this vision in our head and our heart that where can we take this? I mean, we, wasn't too long ago that even immersive within church was like, a dream. But now you're seeing like Space Map and Elisa and all this show up in house of worship venues.
Yeah.
And then people are going to want to take that experience. If they're doing something more immersive with what they have, how can you get that into the seats at home? And so with having immersive in wireless ear pods and, headphones these days, and you can get immersive through your device, delivering that content is really not much of a stretch to get it there. And, I can see it coming. I actually have more and more conversations as time goes on about house of worship and how you can get engaging and immersive content at home. And I think the cost driving that has come way down. And to deliver that is not really astronomical, especially as like, YouTube and, other platforms are going to offer, immersive content, and you can get fold down based on your experience. If you don't want immersive and you want it stereo and you only have stereo, then it'll fold down. So all that's going to be automatic. It's not really going to be costly. And so, I really don't think we're that far off from people. I mean, some people are going to think it's indulgent, but other people are going to think it's another way to engage people with the gospel. So
Yeah.
I
Well, we'll
don't see it being
see.
far-fetched.
I think you're right. And, we'll see kind of how fast and how soon some of that'll happen. I think based on how people are going to adopt the Vision Pro from Apple. I think they've always been such innovators that, if these headsets start flying off the shelves at that price point, all bets are off at that point, because then they're going to start making incredible content, and people are going to, kind of like the white earbuds did a generation ago. You're going to have people clamoring for what's next. So it's going to be exciting.
See if
Yeah,
I
it's
can
gonna be
say
good.
this without breaking any NDAs here, but I guess they've been announced. So like I was able to see some early versions of the Vision Pros and some content on them that again, makes me think about how the faith community and other people can use these. And like again, I don't think we're that far off. And I think it's pretty engaging in what you can do there and the stuff that they're
So
developing and where they're heading.
are you going to buy one?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have one.
Okay. Interesting. Well,
I feel like I will kind of need to based on some partnerships we have. So,
okay. Then the next question, are you going to buy me one?
everybody gets one. This is like Oprah, man.
Oh,
You get a
good.
Vision Pro.
You get a Vision Pro. You get a Vision Pro.
But guys like Apple's are the ones, you're right, like that push us. We didn't know we all wanted Bluetooth headphones. We didn't know we all wanted AirPods and Bluetooth. They physically took away
Well,
the
we
jack
didn't
in their
know.
phone.
We didn't know we wanted an iPod. I mean, I remember the first, the first Apple launch of the iPod, and Steve Jobs
Yeah.
standing on stage saying 1,000 songs in your pocket, and he dropped that first generation iPod in his shirt pocket, and I was like,
I kind of miss the iPod.
who would want that? And then boom, I mean, everybody had to have it. It's like, so that kind of innovation, is
Yeah.
only going to continue to change the game.
Well, and then the competitors come, and then we saw the moment they got rid of the headphone jack, everyone had a pair of Bluetooth headphones.
Yeah.
Perfect example I use all the time, when lecturing these kids these days, is Google Fiber. The moment they announced Google Fiber in Atlanta, AT&T and Comcast did too, and theirs was available immediately. So they were already sitting on it.
Yeah.
They had already run it. They're already sitting on it, but there was no need. There was no competition. It was never introduced. The desire was never there because no one needed. Then Google goes and says it, and everyone's like, Google Fiber's out of money now on this particular project. And I have Google Fiber. They're maintaining what they've put down, but all of us want fiber.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where we're getting it from. All of us want fiber. They just had to give us the option, and everyone follows suit. So
Yeah.
it's exciting to see what's next.
Nobody thought they would
Yeah.
need 1,024 channels in a 1RU hardware, but hey,
Right.
Lawo, you got to
Here we
give the
are.
people what they want. That's right.
Well,
Well,
Tony, you're
gotta
a
have it,
brilliant man.
Yeah, I
You-
love
you
it.
have,
So there's three
I try,
things on
man.
the podcast today that I never thought I would hear, and three things that have never appeared yet. Sorry. There's three things on this podcast so far that I never thought I would hear and have never appeared on the MxU podcast before. One, 16K video. Two, 4 acres of LED surface. And three, ectosphere. Jay, you know I'm a word
Ectosphere.
guy, and ectosphere
Yeah.
is now a word that I'm going to start adding to my vocabulary.
Yeah.
Let me
cool.
give
me
you
know
a
how that
little,
goes.
a little parting context on the sphere.
Okay.
They cannot run all the LED at full brightness or will take down the electrical grid within Las Vegas. That's how much power it takes to run the place.
Did you tell them that we know where power comes from? Amen.
You know where else there's power? There's power in the blood.
Amen.
That's true. So true.
Well, on that note,
yeah.
Tony, we're going to let you go, but thank you so much, as always, for being a part of the conversation. I love it, and love you and what you guys are doing, and
Thanks for
can't
allowing me
wait
to
to
be
see
here,
what's
guys.
next.
You're the
Yeah,
man.
for sure.
Okay, well, this is going to be an interesting outro to this episode because, we just talked to Tony Staires and heard all about the sphere and the infrastructure and the project and all that. But Jay, you and our friends Ryan McCormick and Ryan Swinford are actually in Vegas. And last night you saw you two at the Sphere. So I wanted to get
Here we are live in Sin City.
Yeah.
I am covered with filth.
We survived.
I cannot imagine what Jay in Vegas would be like, but
It's not great. It's not great. That's why we're here, to keep him in check.
That's
for
good.
those
So he's
of
got
you who have
chaperones.
not heard me mention Ryan and Ryan before, they're basically like my probation officers mixed with my accountability partners.
I
It's
like
a tough
it.
job. It's a full-time job.
Dear friends, both came out of church world, production guys, but now in the secular space, working for the chicken ministry known as Chick-fil-A.
That's right. The Holy Poultry.
The Holy Poultry. But we went to the show last night, Jeff, and holy poultry.
Okay,
It was
so
unbelievable.
I need to know, like, just because what I wanted to get was just sort of an immediate kind of firsthand like reaction. So talk to me about just what it was like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that, like, I had heard so many different people had come to the show. I'd heard so many amazing reviews. I kind of almost went in like slightly skeptical, like, can it be this good and overwhelming, and like, can it be this different? People are like, it's like no other show you've ever been to, which is a pretty bold statement. But honestly, you walk in and all of a sudden you see the scale of the Sphere, and you're like, oh my God, like this is gonna be incredible. And then that first note from the Edge, and you're like, I'm in. This is it. So it was really, it's not hyperbole to say, hey, it's like it is unlike any other show that I've been to.
Yeah. So in terms of the audio experience, like I've heard YouTube before, and I'm one of the few people in the world who's just kind of like take it or leave it on their live shows because I just don't think it sounds very good. So what was the audio experience like?
I mean, I think one of the immediately interesting things just about the Sphere is like you don't see any PA anywhere. Like as far as when you're facing forward, like if you look behind some of the under balconies and stuff like that, you could see some boxes, but all of it is behind the LED wall. So it's kind of a weird moment there to not have a visual point of reference. Normally, you're kind of like looking for okay, there's the left hang, there's the right hang. I can kind of like set myself.
Kind of messes with your head.
Yeah, because audio is immersive, and some of the songs it's coming from all over the place.
I turned around at one point. I remember hitting one of them because when I turned 180 degrees, the audio flipped for me because there's speakers back there, and I could hear the Edge's guitar in a different place than when I was turned around.
That's crazy.
Which, by the way, the Edge and his guitar, I mean, it just is incredible.
If you are
unbelievable,
if you are a Christian guitar player listening to this, you owe the Edge.
The Edge
is CCM.
You should probably just stop playing it. Probably should stop it.
Edge knows what he's done for Christian music.
That's amazing.
Man, he was something special, and he certainly, like in the mix, that was the piece that soared over even Bono's vocal, probably.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Jeff, it kind of like the like when you wear those like the Apple headphones and do their kind of like spatial audio stuff for the first time, and that's kind of what I would liken it to. Of you all of a sudden had this. There was all kinds of crazy things happening with panning and stuff that was just more. I keep using the word immersive, but it was more exaggerated than just a normal like, okay, here's a left-right panning, or here's an LCR. Like it was, truly like total spatial panning where a guitar part would start on the left side and then it would kind of bounce to the right side in such a dramatic fashion that it was really, it was pretty unique.
But it would go behind you as well, so it's truly 360 in terms of the experience. And
I think I could watch that show multiple times from different vantage point and enjoy it.
Yeah, that's very cool.
The thing that some of the comments I've heard about the sound is you can't negate the cavernous space, so you can't get rid of that.
Right.
And it's not like they can just put all this padding in front of a hard surface LED wall. So you are in a little bit of a cavernous space. So understanding that and giving that a little bit of forgiveness in the equation.
Feel that some.
Yeah, you feel that, but it really was like pretty brilliant. And
There were preferences in the mix that I wouldn't care for at times, but at the same time, from the downbeat to the end, you can also never beat thousands of people singing on the top of their lungs at multiple points. There were tears.
Oh yeah.
We might have made fun of a few people, but there were some questionable outfits and there were some tears.
And that's just in your 3 seats.
Yeah. Yeah, I was not the first to cry. Not the first.
Yeah, unlike most experiences where Ryan Swinford is in the room, he wasn't the first one crying. So
Exactly. That's a win. We're proud of him. We're proud of him. But Beautiful Day will get you. It'll get you.
Of course
Every time.
it will. That's awesome. Well, obviously, visually, it's stunning for sure. I mean, anytime you see pictures or videos of what's happening on all of the LED, it's like overwhelming. What was that part of it like? I mean, obviously, it's scale like you've never seen before, but I'm assuming that the audio and video were matched in terms of the awe factor.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was especially like a few of the songs that they had really obviously spent serious time and effort and resources to build out the content. Some of those moments were it was just it was evident to see the intentionality of both the LED content, the audio, the band performance, the camera movements, because like they were incorporating iMag into this as well. And I don't know if I had thought about that when I think all the pictures you see are all a lot of like the scenic LED,
Right.
but they did some really cool stuff
Really
with
cool.
iMag.
We got
robotic
to meet
cameras.
with one of the guy who provides the cameras before the show, and
Sweet.
it was awesome. In our overview, everything was custom made. So the robotics are on a track. There's 3 of them, and they would never crash into each other. They have these sensors that when they can get as close as 6 feet apart without hitting each other with the robotic arms, and then the dolly cam that's right at the back of the GA seating is custom made, and he raised it and lowered it, and I had my hand on it, and I couldn't feel it. I mean, it was
Wow.
dead still and dead quiet. We saw the robotic camera move. Was it Bono at the Edge? It was right in front of him, and it was absolutely
Moving all over the place.
it was wild to watch.
These were like multi-axis camera, like robotic arm cameras. These weren't just like a single up, down, pan left. These were, truly. And what was super cool, like the guy that we met with told us that all the cameras are talking to each other. So if the director takes one of the cameras, as soon as the tally goes to that camera, the other 2 cameras automatically get out of the way and drop out of the shot. And
That's
so you
crazy.
can, I mean, oh yeah, and so like obviously there's some amazing like automation that was happening to that, both on the operator side, but you could also see like Edge and Bono had like really rehearsed like playing to the camera. And what was cool is like you had all these moments with like tight camera shots that were really cool. That there's no camera operator on deck. There is no like handheld operator. It's all these like smaller robotic arms that are doing all of it, which really kind of added to that super clean stage visual that they already had.
I couldn't find the PTZ that was in the drum cage. It was once I found it, I noticed it, but it was awesome too. The way we were pretty close. But if I can only imagine in the 400 section, still feeling that close because of the nature of the LED wall at iMac.
That's
The
crazy.
content was incredible though. Like on some of, especially like you said a second ago, there was definitely songs they went all in on the content. It was unbelievable. And what they can do in that room, they can make it feel like a box where the ceiling's collapsing in on you. I mean, it's pretty. It makes you question like what's real and what's fake.
The stage was not moving, but it felt like for 5 minutes that the stage was moving, but actually all the content was scrolling down behind it, and it wigged us out. But we felt like we were moving. We felt like the whole floor was going to hit the ceiling. It was multi-sensory in every way, because I think the audio allowed for it too. It would be wild to see their process for just a single moment like that with everyone in the
And
room.
it wasn't distracting either.
No.
Like it was a U2 show.
Yeah.
You know,
That's cool. Well, multisensory, I think, is a great adjective for all of it. And I mean, I can't wait to see it because obviously I know that you guys are pretty discerning. And like you said, Ryan, going into it kind of skeptical and then still being
Yeah.
overwhelmed, even though you know how stuff works, just being amazed by what's happening, even if you know what's happening. That's to me like the indicator of something that's truly special. So
That's true.
that's really cool. Well, thank you guys for sharing your first blush kind of reactions and insight. I think, it's something that everybody needs to see. I'm curious to see how it's going to move forward with other artists and other content. And, obviously the purpose-built content is really where the thing shines. And so I can't wait to see what other people
And
do
we talked
with that
to
room.
we talked to the guy that we were talking to yesterday about whoever's coming next, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like, yeah, budgetary constraints may not allow them to do the custom content. Because there's this one moment that a chain has a rope connected to a balloon. And Bono is holding a balloon. The balloon's on the LED, but the rope is physical. And the balloon is moving on the LED. It's wild.
Wow.
But that took a lot to plan and pay for. And so he was saying, what did he say they were going to do? Oh, live rendering. So they're probably going to do some more of that live video effect stuff in order to substitute for content. So it will be interesting.
Just because the content creation for that canvas is so massively cost prohibitive.
Yeah, well, there's not a raster that exists for that thing. It's like everything has to be custom because it's so many pixels. It's just so massive.
Do you think my tailors say the same thing? There's not a size for this guy. Everything we make for him is custom sizing.
Yeah, the sphere is just like Jay's tailor. I love it. Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your insights. That's cool.
Yeah,
well,
thanks, Jeff.
Can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to see you guys in person. You need to come to Greenville, and we go to Lewis Barbecue, and we can talk more in person.
We talked about it last night. Prime rib, Wednesday night.
Let's do it. I'm in.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
To sign off, we always say this: go check on your friends, get some friends. These are two of my greatest friends, and honor of a lifetime to have. So, if you don't have two Ryans in your life, go find you two Ryans.
Love
or
it.
at least one.
Yeah, or at least one.
All right, guys. Have a great trip back. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. See you then.